Same time, trying to keep some sort of cohesive organization without being centralized, and that it seems like that would be kind of a hard balance to maintain. And I don't know how Occupy Fort Wayne or any of the other movements across the country are planning on dealing with this. But do you think that it's possible to maintain strong organization and possibly even have correspondence and networks between different movements without having some sort of centralized, I guess, command post or whatever, like some sort of central voice that is bringing the movement along? Do you think it's possible for people just to, maintain organization without that?
Well, I think what we're seeing, it's a lot of wordplay, because they're going to say we're a leaderless movement. We're leaderless, don't have any leaders. Yet, when I look at the local media, they're going to have quotes from different people, and sometimes it's just going to be just a name. But then it's going to say organizer Lee Lemon, organizer Roseanne Miller. And then when I look at the national stuff, where you're going to have, who is it, Daryl Prince? He's the accountant in New York. He's the one that's helping facilitate all this cash flow. And then, I think Chuck, I can't remember his name, with the Alliance for Global Justice.
Yeah.
Well, he's sitting there collecting money. And also in Fort Wayne, where they don't want to call themselves leaders. They can't, because in Occupy Charlotte, the organizer there, who had the Occupy Charlotte domain and a Twitter feed, well, apparently somewhere along the line, he called himself a leader.
Yeah.
So the rest of the Occupy Charlotte movement voted him out. He had to go. Just for calling himself a leader. But if you call yourself an organizer or a group action facilitator, all this facilitation, well, you're not a leader. But it's just wordplay. So they do have leaders. And so what you're going to find is if you're playing that kind of wordplay, calling yourself a leaderless movement, yet you have organizers and you have group action facilitators, well, those are leaders. But you're saying they're not. You're saying, well, that's white, but it's not.
Yeah.
You're saying that's black, but it's not. Well, it's word games. It's playing with semantics. And when you have that, then again, the symbolism that I talk about of we're a political economic movement, but we're apolitical. We're not getting involved in this election. Not even going to mention it. Nope. And then we're an economic movement, but the model that we're actually showing is please give us money, food, and tampons. And when you have that combined with all this leaderless rhetoric, but you have organizers and facilitators, well, you do have leadership. So why are you lying to yourself? And if you lie to yourself, well, how do you know where you are? If you don't know where you are, you can't go anywhere.
So would you say that there shouldn't be as much denial about some sort of organized structure or hierarchy within the group, or do you think that there should just not be any hierarchy at all, and we shouldn't have these facilitators and organizers, and that everyone should play equal roles in the entire process, or how should it be facilitated?
Well, I don't think a hierarchy is necessarily a bad thing. A hierarchy is just going to be an organizational structure, and you're going to have various point people in that. You can call them managers, supervisors, but don't call them leaders. Don't dare call them leaders. Now for me, I'm just going to say, well, nothing wrong with a hierarchy, because that's going to help organize what you want to do. Even Occupy Fort Wayne, they're going to have an organizational structure. Direct action. They're going to have communication, comfort, food. They're going to have that, and different people heading that up. But just don't call us leaders. I think that's silly. So again, for me, I'm going to say there's not a problem with a hierarchy. Now, what you're going to find at Occupy Fort Wayne, well, their main issues that they have to deal with on a daily basis, most of their issues have to do with their living quarters. I mean, very little being spoken about in terms of action or communication. In fact, when you go to the website, occupyfortwayne.org, they're going to say, for communications, well, we need to create these flyers. Okay, and then you go to direct action. Well, you go to direct action. Well, their goal is we need to move these flyers. So that's the extent that you're getting of communication and action. Other than that, it's all about keep the area clean, keep the food area clean. If you're going to be on the grass, do this. If you're going to be in the concrete, do that. It's all about how they're maintaining their temporary living arrangements. And so that's what it's about for them. And so if people go to them, Occupy Fort Wayne participants, the ones who are more concerned with their living arrangements, because that's the real reality for them. If people go to them looking for political economic guidance, you're not going to like what you get. You're not going to get anything. So it's going to be up to people using Occupy Fort Wayne simply as a symbol, But the people within it, if they want to actually be effective as a movement, they are going to have to create a hierarchy. They're going to have to create real goals, and if they're going to create a sustainable platform, it's not going to consist of just donations, or they're going to have to make alignments with the businesses. Maybe do some benefit concerts where you actually raise money, but they're going to have to engage in some sort of capitalist system. But if they're going to say, hey, capitalism stinks, but you people might need to do a concert where you're charging money. And so I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think a lot of people have hang-ups, as far as the whole leader thing, with establishing that hierarchy, because, part of, what the movement seems like it's trying to work towards is a less pronounced hierarchy within our own society, where people have a little bit more equal opportunities. They have equal chance to receive medical care, things like that. So it seems like people might be a little bit apprehensive to say that one person is a leader, or say that this person's voice represents their voice without actually hearing it. But at the same time, I would have to say that there has to be a point where we start trusting each other, that we're here for this movement for the greater good, and that the choices that we're trying to make are, we're thinking about everybody, we're listening to people's voices, we're hearing people's concerns, I think maybe if that sort of tone gets established, that maybe people might be a little bit more willing to go along with, if not a centralized structure, maybe a centralized voice and message behind it, What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends on whether the movement wants to actually go somewhere. If you want to go somewhere, well, you will have to have direction.
Yeah.
And so, does direction require a leader? I'm not sure, but you need direction, and you're going to have to put some sort of organizational form on that. And when we talk about equality, well, people are going to be doing different things. So is a nurse equal to a writer? Well, that might not be the right terms to speak about it. But we're going to have a place for nurse, we're going to have a place for a writer, and you can have a place in this structure, kind of doing your thing. And we are going to want some sort of organization. I think what happens when we talk about this notion of leaders, well, we forget what a leader is supposed to do. A leader is a facilitator. A leader is an organizer.
What we've forgotten, though, is that a leader is supposed to look out for everybody. And I think that's something that, maybe if the spirit continues, we might once again have some sort of trust in people that are supposed to be leading us. That would be one of my hopes.
Well, the issue with leadership, and like when we talk about this government, well, it's accountability that people like. It's the lack of accountability that they don't like. So, if Occupy Fort Wayne, they says, okay, we do have to create this organizational structure. We are going to have different leaders, different sergeants, people that actually are going to be experts in communication. They're going to lead up our communications crew. And we're not going to be afraid to call them leaders. Well, you realize that you've got to hold those people accountable. And so, along with that, since you're creating this from the ground up, create a ground-up structure for accountability. Now, we have a tendency to look to the United States President as our leader, but that's not his job. Your president is merely the top cop. He runs the executive branch of your three branches of government. The executive branch, your legislative branch, your judicial branch. Supposed to be equal. We've got people looking to the president, who's merely the top cop. He's like the police chief. He's supposed to be busting people. He should be busting these Wall Street firms for all their fraud, but instead he's taking money from them. People don't like that, but nonetheless, they still look to that crook who's taking money from the people he should be arresting. They look to him to be our leader, to speak for us. They look to President Barack Obama to write the American Jobs Act, when your Constitution, Article 1, Section 7, will tell you it is your Congress that is supposed to come up with legislation. Your president is not supposed to have an American Jobs Act. So people are mistaken by looking to this central figure the president, who people vote for by the millions, they make the mistake of looking at him as a leader. Well, he's a leader of the executive branch. He's not the leader of the free world. That is a mistake that people have given. So that's why people are going to be so skeptical of leaders. Because when you look at our main example of a leader, well, number one, it's a guy that you shouldn't be looking at as a leader, except as a leader of the executive, a leader of your federal police branch. It's supposed to be busting lawbreakers. But when that's your example of leadership, and it's so corrupt, well, you're not going to trust any leaders.
Yeah.